Welcome to the Radio Revenue Podcast. Today we're taking a deep dive into McKesson Corporation, a real giant in healthcare services. We're cracking open their latest financial report. Not just skimming, but really unpacking how a company this big, this important, navigates, well, a pretty tough industry. Vital services on one hand, but huge regulations and constant financial ups and downs on the other.
It's a fascinating document, it really is. And our mission today really is to cut through all that corporate jargon. We want to pull out the key bits of knowledge for you, the learner, so you're well informed about their strategy, their financial health, the big challenges they face, being central to advancing health outcomes for all, but without getting totally bogged down in detail.
Exactly. Think of this as your essential guide. Insights into the big decisions, the market pressures, all those hidden complexities behind a global healthcare leader. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's get started. First off, to really get McKesson, we need to understand just how wide their reach is. Who are they exactly, and what are their main lines of business?
Right. So we're looking at McKesson Corporation, a really diversified healthcare services leader. Their work mainly falls into four big buckets, four segments. Each one plays a pretty different role. The biggest, probably the foundation, is U.S. Pharmaceutical. This is where they distribute just a huge range of medicines. Branded, generic, specialty, biosimilars. Those are the cost-effective versions of biologic drugs and over-the-counter stuff, too, all across the U.S. But it's more than just moving boxes. They also provide, critical support like practice management, tech, clinical help for community oncology centers and other specialty practices. They're really woven into how these places operate.
Okay, so not just logistics. They're deep into the clinical and financial side of their partners, too. That seems like a key strategy, but doesn't maybe expose them to different risks than just a pure distributor?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a great point. It can cut both ways. It makes them very valuable, very sticky for customers, sure. But it also means their success is much more closely tied to how well those partners are doing financially and operationally. Which brings us nicely to their next segment. Prescription Technology Solutions, or RxTS. Think of this as the digital engine room for getting medications. It uses automation to link up patients, pharmacies, doctors, health plans, smooth things out, the main goal. Better access to meds, making them more affordable through price transparency, and helping people actually take them as prescribed. They do this with things like electronic prior authorization, speeding up approvals, and tools for seeing prescription prices in real time. Plus, they handle logistics and distribution for drug companies, too.
Right. Sounds like they're tackling some real headaches in the system, making it easier for everyone involved.
Yeah.
What's the third main area?
That would be medical surgical solutions. This part focuses on distributing medical and surgical supplies plus logistics services to a really wide range of providers. We're talking small doctors' offices, surgery centers, nursing homes, hospital labs, home health agencies, you name it. And they don't just distribute the big national brands. They have their own line of products, too, distributed through a massive U.S. network.
Okay. And the last piece, their international operations. How far does that reach?
Their international segment covers everything outside the U.S., mainly focused on Canada and Norway. This includes drug distribution, specialty pharmacy services, some retail pharmacies, and even infusion care. So like in Canada, they deliver medicines, supplies, IT solutions. And in Norway, they distribute to wholesale and retail, and they even own or partner in some pharmacies there.
Yeah, that is a truly broad scope. Distribution, digital tools, even direct patient care sometimes. With such a diverse portfolio, have they been making any big strategic changes lately? The healthcare world seems to demand constant adjustment.
You're absolutely right. They've definitely been making moves to streamline operations and focus more sharply on their core healthcare businesses. A big one was in their international segment. During fiscal 2025, they actually sold off their Canadian retail businesses, Rexall and Well.ca. People might know those names. And looking forward, they've announced plans to spin off their medical surgical solutions segment, make it totally separate, independent company. This isn't just small stuff. It's a major reshaping.
Yeah, definitely not minor tweaks.
Exactly. So for you, the listener, what this signals is a company not just reacting, but actively shedding parts that might be, say, lower margin or growing slower. They seem to be doubling down on the core, higher value distribution and tech side, maybe aiming for a leaner structure built for the future pharmaceutical supply chain, positioning for growth.
So massive shifts in their business footprint really shows them adapting to stay competitive and efficient in a market that's always changing. Now, let's get into the really interesting part, maybe the tough part. The competitive and regulatory environment. Operating in healthcare, especially pharma, must come with some unique pressures. What does the report say about who they're up against and the rules they have to follow?
Oh, it's incredibly challenging, both in North America and Europe. McKesson is head-to-head with huge competitors like Cencora, Inc., and Cardinal Health, Inc. Those are direct rivals in distribution, wholesale, logistics. But the competition is actually much broader than that. You've got other distributors, service merchandisers, big drugstore chains that handle their own warehousing, even drug manufacturers sometimes distributing directly. And here's a key thing the report stresses: consolidation. The healthcare industry keeps consolidating and competitors merge, but also their customers merge. This actually reduces McKesson's bargaining power when negotiating contracts, which can squeeze profit margins. They even face competition from customers who start developing their own supply management systems internally.
Wow, that's tough. Your own customers potentially becoming competitors. And beyond the market fight, what about the rules, the regulations? Sounds like a jungle they have to navigate constantly.
It really is. They're subject to this incredibly dense, constantly changing web of laws. It adds layers of complexity and, frankly, significant cost. Let's touch on a few key areas. First, cybersecurity, data security, and privacy. You've got laws like HIPAA here in the US, GDPR over in the EU, Canada's PIPEDA, plus more and more state-level privacy laws popping up in the US. Complying is a massive task. It's not just about stopping breaches, it's about managing who can access sensitive data and having systems for rapid notification if something does happen. The report specifically mentions their cybersecurity risk management program aligns with the NIST cybersecurity framework, that's the National Institute of Standards and Technology framework, kind of the gold standard. Shows they're taking a very structured approach.
Yeah.
Plus, lots of employee training.
Right, so it's not just tech defenses, but managing vast amounts of sensitive patient info and keeping up with constantly changing privacy rules. That's a huge job.
Huge. And another big area, increasingly important, is climate change regulation. Governments worldwide are bringing in new policies. Things like cutting greenhouse gas emissions, requiring detailed disclosures. For McKesson, this could mean spending serious money on new systems just to gather and report the data, getting third-party verification, maybe investing in ways to reduce their own emissions. It's a whole new layer of compliance and strategic thinking.
That's a forward-looking challenge, impacting everything from how they operate to their supply chain. What about the more traditional legal risks around business practices?
That leads us to antitrust laws. Regulators always keep a close eye on healthcare because of all the consolidation. Getting it wrong here can mean severe penalties, criminal, civil, even treble damages in private lawsuits, where damages get tripled by law. So, big compliance effort there. And related to that, anti-bribery and anti-corruption laws, like the U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act or the U.K. Bribery Act. More rules, more compliance burden, with potentially huge fines if they slip up.
Sounds like a legal minefield they have to constantly tiptoe through. Needs massive internal resources, I imagine. Are there any big legislative changes directly hitting their core pharma distribution business right now?
Absolutely. Healthcare reform is a huge one, specifically the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, the IRA. It's bringing some pretty significant changes to how Medicare pays for drugs. Things like government price negotiation, rebates if prices rise faster than inflation. This impacts the whole pharmaceutical value chain: manufacturers, pharmacy benefit managers, everyone. They're all adjusting their business models, and McKesson is clearly watching the impact closely. The full effects aren't totally clear yet, so it's a major area for their strategic planning. It's fascinating. It's not just about following rules, is it? It's about constantly adapting their entire strategy to this shifting legal, economic, even environmental landscape. It really highlights just how complex it is to deliver healthcare products and services at this scale. Okay, let's switch gears a bit to the financials. Beyond the operational stuff, how are they actually performing, and what are the major financial risks they flag in the report?
Well, looking at their operating profits by segment for fiscal 2025, it's definitely a mixed bag. Reflects those strategic changes and market pressures we talked about. Their U.S. pharmaceutical segment did very well. Profit was up a significant 44%, hitting over $4 billion. Prescription technology solutions also saw good growth, up 5% in profit. But medical surgical solutions was down 19%. And maybe the most striking thing, the international segment actually reported a loss of $213 million. Now, that loss was mostly driven by specific charges related to selling those Canadian retail businesses we mentioned earlier. Right. So some really strong spots, but other areas clearly feeling the pressure or going through expensive changes. What about specific financial headaches or, big liabilities that really stand out in the report?
Yeah, there are several key things demanding attention. The biggest, and it's an ongoing issue, is opioid-related claims. This is still a major potential liability for McKesson. As of March 31st, 2025, their estimate for accrued liability money set aside was a huge $6.4 billion. But here's the crucial part. Because there's so much uncertainty with all the ongoing lawsuits and settlements, they explicitly say they can't reasonably estimate the full potential loss, high or low. They booked more charges related to this in the last couple of years, $51 million in fiscal 25, $75 million in 24. It's a constant financial drain.
Wow, 6.4 billion, and that might not even be the final number. What does a liability that massive and uncertain mean for them, for their flexibility, future plans?
It definitely impacts their financial flexibility, no question. An open-ended liability that large needs constant watching, constant provisioning. It ties up capital that could otherwise go into growing the business or returning value to shareholders. It really underscores the need for super robust risk management. Another big hit they highlighted was the Rite Aid bankruptcy impact. In fiscal 2024, they took a massive $725 million charge in their U.S. pharma segment. That was basically for unpaid bills from Rite Aid before they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in late 2023. Shows the credit risk involved. Now, there was some good news. In fiscal 2025, they reevaluated those initial estimates, got some cash back, and actually reversed $206 million of that charge. So some relief there.
Okay, a decent recovery on Rite Aid, but still, it shows how vulnerable they can be to big customer failures. Anything new on the tax front affecting them?
Yes. There's the share repurchase excise tax. That same Inflation Reduction Act brought in a new 1% tax on companies buying back their own stock, started January 1st, 2023. For McKesson, this added about $26 million in accrued taxes for fiscal 2025 and $25 million for fiscal 2024. They paid the 24 tax bill in October 2024. It's not on the scale of the opioid issue, obviously, but it's another cost that affects how they manage their capital.
So this raises a big question. How do these huge ongoing liabilities like the opioid claims, plus unexpected hits like bankruptcies and new taxes, how does all that affect their overall financial health and their ability to plan ahead?
Well, these things significantly impact their reported financials, their bottom line. It forces incredibly careful management and setting aside large provisions. The sheer size and uncertainty of the opioid liability mean it hangs over them, needs constant monitoring, and could change dramatically depending on court outcomes. It creates this persistent cloud. The report also mentions broader risks, like relying on third-party service providers. If one of their key partners fails, it could cause operational problems or hike up costs for McKesson, another layer of financial risk. For you, the listener, it really shows that even huge, profitable companies face serious financial volatility from outside events. It demands not just strong finances, but really sophisticated risk management and planning.
Okay, moving beyond the numbers and the external threats, what about the inside, the structure, the oversight that keeps a company this massive running effectively and ethically?
Right. The report really emphasizes their commitment to strong corporate governance. They say it's fundamental to their whole strategy. They lay out their I care values. That's integrity, inclusion, customer first, accountability, respect, and excellence. And along with those, their I-led leadership behaviors: inspire, leverage, execute, advance, develop. They state pretty clearly these are meant to guide everyday actions and decisions across the whole company. They also talk a lot about focusing on employees, seeing them as critical assets, investing in them through health benefits, savings plans, flexible work options, lots of training.
So it sounds like a strong internal culture, and focusing on employee well-being is pretty central for them. What about the financial checks and balances? The transparency? That's absolutely vital for a public company this size.
For sure. The financial statements get a thorough audit by an independent firm, Deloitte & Touche LLP. Deloitte gave their opinion that the financials present fairly, in all material respects, the company's position and results. And also that McKesson maintained, in all material respects, effective internal control over financial reporting as of March 31st, 2025. That's a requirement under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Getting that clean bill of health from the auditors is a crucial signal for investors about the reliability of the numbers. Plus, they have a detailed insider trading policy framework. It's a whole system of policies, controls, practices, all designed to prevent anyone misusing important non-public information.
Right. That gives you a real sense of the extensive systems and controls they have in place, trying to ensure financial integrity and ethical behavior. It's not just the final numbers, but the rigorous process behind them that builds trust, I suppose.
Exactly. And finally, the report includes that standard but always important section on forward-looking statements. It's basically a necessary warning label, cautioning people not to put too much faith in predictions because, well, the industry is risky and uncertain. It doesn't give specific guarantees about the future, but it's transparent. It shows the company knows the challenges it faces and that planning is always ongoing. It highlights that even with all the controls, the future in healthcare always has big unknowns.
This deep dive has really pulled back the curtain, hasn't it, on just how complex the operations and challenges are for a major player like McKesson in healthcare services. From understanding all their different parts and the big strategic sales to grappling with those massive liabilities and navigating incredibly complex rules, we've seen just how intricate running an enterprise like this really is.
It's a powerful reminder, I think. Behind every line item on a financial statement, there are huge strategic choices, intense market pressures, and this constantly shifting web of regulations and compliance. For you, the learner, getting a feel for these layers gives a much richer, more nuanced picture of the global healthcare economy and how these vital services actually get delivered.
So here's a final thought for you to maybe chew on. Given these constant pressures for innovation and efficiency in healthcare, how might the growing regulatory focus on things like cybersecurity, climate change, maybe even emerging AI governance, how might that impact the actual pace and direction of innovation within this crucial industry moving forward? It was a Revenue Radio podcast. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated with our latest analyses.